So I saw another update video, and I was a little surprised who posted this update video, and I'll talk about that more after why I was surprised. But I think I figured out the common trend of why it was posted. The reason this surprised me was because, like, and I think this Brian Tyler Cohen channel does good work sometimes, oftentimes. But for example, you can just tell the difference, like when we were watching David Dole, and he's like a dude in like not his bedroom, but some little room in his house, his apartment, whatever. He's just wearing a hoodie, he's chilling out. And then like you get Brian here on some like professional set and he's got like an earpiece in. It's like, why do you need an earpiece to talk to Brad Lander? Anyway, what I'm saying is these represent two different kinds of media, and this one is not an independent media. This one is an independent media. And what are the effects of not being real independent media? Well, you can do some good work, but and we'll look at a few other, alternative but non-independent media channels. You can do a lot of good work, but there's some things that you don't necessarily, you're not necessarily there for. So if you look over this channel, what you'll see is before today, before this news about Lander being arrested, there was basically nothing on this whole channel, which has, again, 4.5 million subscribers. It's one of the biggest Democrat aligned channels on the internet. And they said absolutely nothing about the NYC mayor race. Maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you're like even nominally progressively aligned, it would be like in 2016 not ever mentioning Bernie's campaign, or in 2018 not ever mentioning AOC's campaign. That's what we're talking about. Like Zoran, this is the biggest news for progressives in America for years, and looking over this channel, everything is about Trump. There's a few that are about Gavin Newsom. There's one that's about the Karen Bass lady, the mayor of LA. And a little more Gavin Newsom, but it's also Trump related. Everything is Trump. Everything is Trump. And and I'm not saying this is because like, it's not necessarily because they're like, anti-progressive. I think part of it is that YouTube and that social media companies and that tech companies are very anti-progressive. So, like you can see right here, if you look at the number of views, 6 hours ago, 580,000 views, 11 hours ago, 438,000 views, 3 hours ago, 150,000 views for the video of him being arrested. And that one about an hour ago only has 67,000 views. So basically what I'm saying is you can tell that the algorithm, if you talk about Trump, it will boost your content. Trump gets the clicks, and the algorithm is designed to give Trump the attention and the clicks. If you're trying to run a big YouTube channel like this and you put out a video with an exclusive interview, and you only, this only came out 53 minutes ago, so I'm sure it'll like break 100,000 at least. But all these other videos, like we got, the lowest one is this one, 438,000. Oh, and then this one actually is only 200,000. But most of them are like 500,000, 650,000, 1 million, 1.3 million, 2.8 million, 900,000. Like these are massive. Those are big view counts for like a day ago, right? So it's pretty easy to see that like it's not even necessarily explicitly like the bias of these content creators. It's the bias of the algorithm. Now, I would still say somebody like David Dole here, who runs the Rational National, really good channel, recommend everyone subscribes. He's cognizant of that. Like he knows that some topics he talks about aren't going to get a lot of views, but he just takes the hit. If it's an important topic for progressives to be talking about, he'll talk about it, and he doesn't mind like not getting many, even if it hurts his channel in some little way, to not get as many views on that one video because it's talking about Zoran, it's talking about something important to progressives. He still does it. These channels do not, the typical kind of liberal aligned, Democrat aligned channel does not. And so functionally, it starts to become hard. I think there are some cases, like right here, interviewing Brad Lander, Jamie Raskin is all right here. Like in general, Jamie Raskin is all right. So they did one on him, but like, that's like 10% of the videos maybe like feature a progressive, and the progressives are mostly just brought on in the context of a battle with Trump, right? Like they don't have any progressives on unless it's just to talk about how they're fighting Trump or something like that. Um, so, this centrally is an anti-Trump channel. It's not a progressive. It's not a he says he's one of the most viewed independent progressive political hosts, and I don't, I think that they do good work. I haven't watched too much, but when I watch them, it's like decent. I like this. Where is he? He likes having some constitution. This guy, this like constitutional law scholar guy is, and like knows his stuff, and it's like it's like valuable stuff sometimes, but it's a very narrow focus on just anti-Trump, and there's nothing like explicitly progressive about it. So, and it's hard for me to call him an independent media when he gives his videos with an earpiece in. It's like who are you taking whispers from in your ear there? So that's just my feeling towards it, I guess. But think about it in terms of like, if this was Bernie in 2016, or if this was AOC in 2018, would we find it appropriate that they don't mention her or him at all? And it's the same thing with Zoran now. I find it very inappropriate that they don't mention Zoran at all. Eventually, after Brad Lander gets arrested, they have him on, which is probably like, partly to farm views, but partly also because when they, even in the thumbnail right here, even though it didn't directly have anything to do with Trump, they frame everything in terms of anti-Trump. Everything is Trump. Trump's got to be in the thumbnail. It's so consistent with it. And just to reinforce that point, let's look at a few other popular kind of liberal channels. So this one, it only has a third about the subscribers, the last one, but he's some Zoomer guy. Subscribe if you love democracy. And I don't watch this guy. I assume he does good work sometimes, but again, you see everything. Okay, he did one about Brad Lander, okay, getting arrested. That's pretty cool. But they just call him NYC Dem. They don't mention like mayoral candidate or anything like that. And again, Trump is in the title, by Trump goons. You can see everything here. Virtually everything is just an anti-Trump video. It's all about, the focus is pretty much always on Trump, and there is zero focus on progressives. There is zero Bernie, there is zero AOC, there is zero Ilhan Omar, there is zero Zoran, even though he's really relevant to the news right now. It's all about anti-Trump, anti-MAGA stuff. And it's and to be fair, this one doesn't even try to call himself progressive. He just calls himself pro-democratic. He says pro-democracy is how he describes himself. Okay, so again, like, I think a lot of this is just part of this is just kind of the reality of YouTube and tech platforms, burying anything that has to do with progressives and promoting anything that has to do with Trump. Like that, they've been doing that since 2015. They just promote everything that has to do with Trump. They give Trump all the attention in the world. So part of it is that, and trying to farm views. If you're trying to make a living off your channel, then doing like slop anti-Trump videos is like a really good way to do that, right? But yeah, you can see that there's not really any anything progressive being promoted here. Um, and it's still, even if you're trying to grow your channel, like, dude, if you're getting like 800, 900,000 views, 600,000 views, 700,000 views, 1.3 million views, like, you can afford, if you're a progressive, if you really believe in progressive shit, you can afford to like do a video or two on Zoran or on whatever you want, basically. It's not gonna like ruin your channel. So that's questionable, and um uh we'll get into another reason why this might be a consideration, basically. So here's the Meidas Touch channel. Again, they don't really frame themselves as progressive either. They say we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and they call themselves an independent news network. Okay, whatever. And I think I have watched a little bit of Meidas Touch. I think that they do like decent work generally. But again, you can see, like, if these people were aligned with progressives, were actually like themselves personally aligned with progressives, you would think that they might mention the most relevant progressive thing, at least since Bernie 2020. We haven't had like a bigger race, a bigger contest for a bigger position that a progressive was involved with, right? But I did the control F. I searched up. I tried to find any kind of New York, NYC, mayor, Zoran, any Mamdani, any of that. None of it shows up. None of these videos even mention it. Um, and that's when you can separate, like, oh, is this media actually progressive, or are they just anti-Trump? Are they just? And don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think Meidas Touch does good work, and I think like it's infinitely preferable to have them as the biggest podcast versus like Joe Rogan or something like that, right? Um, but it's important to like, keep some perspective on these things too, right? And another reason that all of this happens, right? There's a lot of talk from the Democrats about we need to find a Joe Rogan, we need to like be more active on the alternative media space, podcasts, whatever. We need to be more prominent, get our message out. Like the Democrats are looking for voices that can produce pro-democratic media, basically. And within that whole context, especially, you see things like this happen. So we'll just watch this quickly, but basically, Meidas Touch just straight up like published like Newsom's message to the nation, and it's exclusive, meaning apparently they're the only ones who got this. So apparently Gavin Newsom decided to like go through their channel, and they just decided to publish it, right? And so we can watch this quick.
Words about the events of the last few days. This past weekend, federal agents conducted large.
And just as another background, why this is an important, like why this is a relevant video to watch, the whole whatever happened in LA, the protests, and not really the protests themselves, but like the police response to the protests, the National Guard, the Marines being all that bullshit, and just the goonery of the LAPD and the California Highway Patrol and the LA sheriffs and Orange County sheriff, all the bullshit violence they did, all that big spectacle they created. The primary reason, like I said before, part of it is like at the larger strategic level. Currently, it's in the short term, it's about distracting from the big beautiful bill, distracting from the conflict with Iran, distracting from Elon breaking up with Trump and saying that he's a pedophile, and distracting from the NYC mayoral race. There's so many things right now they want. Trump doesn't want the attention on any of those issues. He wants the attention on immigration stuff and public disorder. Brah, 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 brah. So that's like the short-term priority. In terms of the medium-term priority, what you have to understand about this Gavin Newsom guy, Greasy Gavin here, he's been going on a lot of right-wing podcasts lately. And kind of cozying up to a lot of conservative media figures. And it was becoming pretty obvious that he was kind of opening himself up to try to appeal. Like he's trying to create a path for himself to maybe a couple years from now trying to run for president or something, trying to like have that cross-party independent Republican appeal, whatever. And he sees this as his path. Don't want to upset his donors, so how are you going to appeal to independents? Well, if you don't want to upset donors, big money donors, but you also want to appeal to independents, you have to like be more conservative as a Democrat, basically. Like that's your route, kind of thing. So he's been cozying up to a lot of right-wing media figures. And so part of the reason that Trump chose LA, because he could have chose New York, he could have chose anywhere, right? New York, not the best target because it would bring even more attention to the mayoral race. But LA, the real reason it was chosen as the city to focus on, besides just the fact there's a lot of Mexican people there, but why do it now? Besides those short-term concerns, is to set up, a conflict between the Gavin Newsom world and the Trump world. So by nationalizing the National Guard, federalizing whatever, sending them into LA, Gavin Newsom is put in a position where he pretty much has to defend just not like his own, office and, the power that his office is supposed to hold, but if he wants to like be tenable and like have any kind of democratic support, obviously he has to oppose Trump. Trump is purposely trying to make California hate him. Basically, he's not trying to win over more Californians with what he's doing. He wants California to hate him. And the point of making California hate him is because then Newsom is forced to hate him as well if he wants to represent Californians. If Gavin Newsom doesn't stand up to Trump and fight Trump openly here, then California is going to throw him out, basically. He'll be disgraced. He'll lose his political prospects. However, by starting a conflict with, or, by being dragged into a conflict with Trump like this, Trump is also setting up Gavin Newsom to be a villain to the MAGA voters. So what the thing in LA, I think the principal thing it was about from Trump's point of view, from a strategic point of view, was to close off the path that Newsom was trying to open up to have a future appealing to Trump supporters. Trump's old. If he suddenly dies, he doesn't want somebody like Newsom to be a credible successor, to the Trump base, to like grift to the right and to get the Trump voters. He doesn't want that. He wants more control over who's next, and he doesn't like Newsom. So yeah, I think it was largely just to like stop that. So anyway, within that context, that's why it's interesting to hear, Newsom's response to what's going on in LA and all that. Exactly. The point is, don't be silent. The point isn't don't be violent. The point, that's the like I'd prefer everyone was a violent protester to everyone not being a because by the way, when he says violent protester, he means like they kicked a stop sign or something, or they like littered or something. None of the protesters are actually being violent. When the media says violent protesters, they mean like vandalism. It's like, or like trespassing. It's like, okay, they stepped on someone's lawn, they burned a car, which by the way, LA does every time the Lakers win. That's not like a political thing. Yeah, anyway, what do we notice about this video? Besides the fact it's got 1.8 million views, this is not on like, again, it's not on Gavin Newsom's channel. It's not on the Government of California channel. It's not on like a mainstream news channel. It's on Meidas Touch. And there's not even, it's exclusive. So apparently he sent this to just them, and there's not even any commentary around it. So Meidas Touch just put this video up of a greasy, corrupt politician with no context, no nothing. And sure, it serves the anti-Trump cause, and I see the utility in that sense, but like at a certain point it just becomes kind of like you're doing like the propaganda, like you're just letting the politicians say whatever they want without being critical, without like trying to push things in a certain direction, having any kind of editorial control. You're just letting him say whatever he wants on your platform, and you're letting him use your platform, which, you know, makes Meidas Touch a pretty ideal Joe Rogan equivalent for the Democrats, I would say. Now, I'd also say it, like, I think Meidas Touch would have probably preferred to comment on it, to like have something before it, introing it, or comment on it after too, or whatever. I think they probably would have preferred that. But I think part of the deal, I think part of what Newsom is saying, like said to them, is if you can publish my thing exclusively, my address to the state and nation, you can have the exclusive publishing rights, but it has to be just that. You're not allowed to insert any commentary around it. You just have to like put me up verbatim with no context, and I get to say my piece. Otherwise, I'm not like, he's a governor of California. He can do that, right? And this goes to a larger point, which is that I think that these news stations, like these, I shouldn't call them news stations, but these like semi-independent channels, part of what they want is access. So you could compare it to the Young Turks in 2020. The Young Turks would not endorse Bernie in 2020. And they kept like having Elizabeth Warren on to talk about shit, and people were starting to get really mad, like, why won't you endorse Bernie? Like, you obviously align with Bernie more, you know all the energies behind Bernie, but you're like, you keep playing footsie with Elizabeth Warren. And what it boiled down to is that the Young Turks was trying to protect their access. Okay, if they don't play ball, if a channel doesn't play ball by the rules that the Democrats set up, then the Democrats aren't talking to them. The Democrats aren't giving them interviews, never mind exclusive content, never mind an exclusive announcement like this. So besides the fact that all this anti-Trump slop on this channel, like literally everything is basically thumbnail of Trump arrow to thing and capital disaster meltdown, rude awakening, plan backfires. It's all just designed to maximize clicks. I mean, that's their job, maximize clicks, right? And I know that's part of it. The other part of it, though, is trying to maintain that access. It's the same reason that MSNBC was really adverse to covering Bernie in 2016, because if a mainstream media network, like some of the journalists at those networks, at these channels and stuff, they want to always do good work, and they want to like cover Bernie. A lot of MSNBC people in 2016 wanted to cover Bernie. They weren't allowed to cover Bernie because like Hillary and the Democrats flat out said, if you start covering Bernie, we're not coming on your channel anymore. And then CNN and Fox News and your competitors will get all of our content instead. So to maintain that access, and especially like exclusive access to, you know, politicians and announcements at time and stuff like that, these channels will kowtow. And what I'm saying here is you can't be, Meidas Touch cannot both simultaneously be the channel that Gavin Newsom wants to give his exclusive address on, and the channel that's promoting people like Zoran Mamdani, who are challenging other careerist corporate Democrats like Gavin Newsom, right? You can't be both a progressive channel that's promoting progressive causes and maintain your access to the Democratic Party and be like their favorite child to publish things on, right? So I don't know if it's a cold hard, to what extent it's a cold hard business decision, to what extent it's like an ideological decision, but like it's pretty clear when you look over this channel, it's not, they're not talking like, it's liberal and it's pro-democratic in those senses of being very anti-Trump, but there's no, at no point is there like a progressive cause. Like, I don't even see any videos. I'm sure I missed one somewhere, right? This is only 6 days ago, so we probably have to go back further. But there's one with AOC, but again, it's framed in terms of AOC being anti-Trump. Usually, you know, they have these people on when they're going to be anti-Trump kind of thing. And I don't know about the whole I'm just looking for where is the Freedom Flotilla? Where do they talk about Greta Thunberg and what happened there? I'm just going to keep scrolling, and now I'm going to search Greta. Greta's not found. Freedom not found. Israel. Okay, there's one video about Israel, and it's again an anti-Trump. It's framed as an anti-Trump video. So there's nothing about Greta here either, which is shocking. And B, you're saying that they did an interview with Mamdani, but like I didn't see it. I can't find it. If it's here, I don't see it. NYC, New York, mayor. Like if it's here, they're not promoting it. I don't know if they took it down or what they did, but they're not promoting it. And I'm 0% surprised. Again, I think Meidas Touch does good work a lot of the time. And I think like a lot of their journalism is valuable, but it's also important to like keep these things in perspective and to be able to like look over this and say like, oh, this isn't really progressive media per se, as much as it's just like anti-Trump media. And like I said, I think there's value in that. Even Noam Chomsky, who is I don't even know, an anarcho-syndicalist or something. He's some kind of weird lefty. But he reads the New York Times every day. The New York Times, which is like a pretty conservative newspaper. The reason that Noam Chomsky reads the New York Times is because he wants to get a sense of like the mainstream position, like the position, like not just like what is the mainstream talking about, but like specifically with the New York Times, it's like, what are the Democrats, like what are the boundaries that the Democrats are putting on the conversation? How far will they go? What issues will they focus on, and what issues will they not focus on? And that kind of allows you to understand their priorities. And also, you know, if you're somebody like Noam Chomsky, if you have some kind of, even if you're just an activist or an advocate or whatever, you know, you want to be a protester or whatever, you can gauge your priorities and determine your priorities based on your understanding of, well, all the mainstream liberals who read New York Times or who watch Meidas Touch, they're concerned about these issues. They've been fed these things, but they're not getting fed these things, right? They're not promoting these policies, or they're not talking about these issues. And you can kind of you know, strategize yourself around that. And it gives you a sense for, you know, what the powers that be are excited by. I'm saying the New York Times. I think Meidas Touch less so, but still it's that, right? Like I said, I don't think you can be like an over the top, like radical, you know, progressive supporting channel and still maintain access like this. It just doesn't work like that. Because again, what are progressives in the Democratic Party trying to do? What did Bernie try to do that made him famous? He took on Hillary. What did AOC do that made her famous? She beat Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley, who had been in the House for over 20 years and was the 5th ranking Democrat in the entire Congress. AOC beat him. What these progressive, and now Zoran is threatening to beat Cuomo and basically end Cuomo's career. The same way that Bernie basically ended Hillary's career. It's like, you know, what progressives do is they take out established Democrats. And so if Newsom thought the Meidas Touch was a threat, was going to support a progressive candidate who is challenging him or one of, you know, the politicians like him in the future, he wouldn't be giving them exclusive content. And again, there's a very tangible example of this with the Young Turks in 2020, where they wouldn't endorse Bernie and they kept having Elizabeth Warren and other politicians on. And by the end of it, they were, you know, it was pretty straight up, obviously an access thing. It was like, well, if we start being too upfront and like too aggressively progressive, like actually endorsing these candidates who are challenging, you know, if we actually endorse Bernie while he's trying to challenge Joe Biden, then Elizabeth Warren's not going to come on our channel anymore. And unfortunately, it's that. It's like, and you know, TYT's kind of fallen off. They've kind of gone right wing. Meidas Touch has kind of emerged. So it's what you see. And yeah, so you think they might have an interview with Mamdani coming out. That's fair. Like I said, I think Meidas Touch largely does good work, but I also think it's like important to frame this in terms of like, if this was 2016 or 2018 with Bernie or AOC, and you saw literally like this campaign is months old. Like at this point, if they don't mention Mamdani, they're like purposely trying to not talk about him. You know what I mean? It's the biggest progressive news in years that Mamdani might become mayor, and none of these liberal channels have any videos about it at all. And the only videos they seem to have of any progressives at all is when they want to interview them in like an anti-Trump framing. They don't want to have Brad Lander on. Brian Tyler, like, and again, I like Brian Tyler Cohen. I actually like watching a lot of his videos and stuff, but like he's not here to ask Brad Lander about free buses and freezing the rent and universal child care and raising the taxes on billionaires. He's not here to talk about that. He's here to talk about Trump resistance, right? That's how the whole conversation is framed. That's what they're there to talk about. So, and it's similar with the, you know, the mainstream networks. They will have, you know, it's like Fox is comfortable having progressives on, but only when those progressives are shitting on the Democrats, right? They'll have progressives on, but only progressives who are going to like insult Biden or something. You know what I mean? Like, or they'll try to make them insult Biden. The really good ones like Jon Stewart won't take the bait and they'll stay on there. But the whole thing is framed in terms of how to do that. Like, look at this. Meidas Touch, or sorry, this is Brian Tyler Cohen. They have 2 videos on Elizabeth Warren. They have an interview with Elizabeth Warren, but they never even mention Zoran. They never even mention that there's a New York mayoral race right now. And like people wonder why, like this is like prime example of why our media system is fucked, because even like the resistance media isn't really doing it. It's not really happening. So anyway, it's and again, I think there's value in having media sources like this, because I think it grounds you. It forms like the basis of your understanding of like, if I'm gonna like interact with politics, this gives me like the, you know, the main the perspective, the zeitgeist that everyone is going to be working with, right? This allows me to relate to a lot of different people about politics because these are the issues that are really being promoted. And again, part of it is social media, it's YouTube, just giving numbers to Trump stuff. Again, just to quickly show you, a lot of these videos have over 1 million views, 4.4 million views. Most of them have at least 500,000 views. And I'll refresh the page just in case it's gone up. Yeah, so this is this 3 hours ago, and it has 200,000 views now. So this one, you know, if it's lucky, it might get to 400,000 views. So what I'm saying is these videos don't perform that well compared to the Trump videos. And that's not like Brian Tyler Cohen's fault. That's not Meidas Touch's fault. That's not even Adam Mockler's fault. I think Adam Mockler is kind of just a shit lib. I haven't really seen him do it. I think he's not that bad. Like, I don't think he hurts. I think these people still contribute valuable things, but it is kind of like the new version of like the New York Times or something like that, where it's like it gives you a liberal perspective, but it's like within certain bounds. That, you know, I struggle when these people call themselves independent and progressive. How independent and progressive are you if in 2016 you're not talking about Bernie? If in 2018 you're not talking a lot about AOC, if in 2025, right now, when there's a mayoral race in a few weeks, how are none of your videos on your channel about the mayoral race? How are you not like, it shouldn't even just be a few videos. It should be a lot of videos, right? It should be like 1 out of every 10 videos at least is about the mayoral race until it's like, you know what I mean? Um, like there's not even any anti-Cuomo videos. Like if you're going to be so anti-Trump, why would you not be like Cuomo, also like a disgraced sex offender backed by the same billionaires as Trump, but you're not going to have any anti-Cuomo videos here, even though he might become the mayor of New York and just be Trump shill. Like again, where's the Cuomo videos here? There's probably none. There's none. And the reason is, if these two channels start running anti-Cuomo videos, guess what? Brian Tyler Cohen's not getting Jamie Raskin on his channel again. The DNC won't. I think Jamie Raskin's a decent guy. I don't think I don't think he'll be suggested to go on this media. And Meidas Touch doesn't get Gavin Newsom. If they start ragging on Andrew Cuomo, that's going to make Gavin Newsom uncomfortable. Gavin Newsom knows he's next. He's just as bad as Cuomo. So I think it's like, we don't read newspapers anymore. So I think that like things like these channels are good alternatives to like reading a newspaper. But they're not going to give you the complete picture. They just kind of give you a basis for like understanding all the political dialogue that's going on. I think that's kind of their role. And again, like, because I think that the dude, I forget the Meidas Touch dude's name, but I think he's pretty progressive. Like, I like this guy. I don't remember his name, but I like him. Like, I don't even think it's like him, like, I don't think it's even like a reflection of his political beliefs so much as like a reflection of what you have to do to be a left aligned YouTube channel at this scale, to be the #1 podcast, to get access to the Democrats, to get 500,000 or 1 million views on your YouTube videos. There are certain things you have to do. And one of those things is like, yeah, you probably aren't going to be like running a bunch of like free Palestine videos, right? Like, I don't know. There's a lot. Oh, that's cool. They covered Crystal and talking to Dave Smith. I think that guy's name. He's like one of the first notable Trump voters who's like, all right, I'm done with Trump, basically. But yeah, no, I think they do good work. Just like at the New York Times, there are a ton, and this is something Hasan will talk about. We're gonna watch a Hasan video in a minute. But this is something even Hasan says. He says he's got friends at like maybe not Fox, but he's got friends at CNN. He's got friends at MSNBC. He's got friends at NBC. Like a lot of the reporters do good reporting, but it's more like the owners, it's like the editorial board that's kind of saying like, you guys can't talk about this, It's the editorial board that in 2016 with MSNBC, they literally like were firing people who were trying to cover Bernie or like taking their shows off the air. And instead of showing Bernie's launch in 2016, they famously kept the camera on Trump's empty podium for 45 minutes live. MSNBC sat there waiting 45 minutes for Trump to arrive to his podium to speak, and they just kind of chatted over the footage of the empty podium while Bernie was doing his campaign launch. Okay, these aren't like progressive aligned, I'm just like, you have to be real with it. Like, no Zoran coverage, like, not good. Not good. It's like, as much as I think New York has to not fuck this up, it's kind of like, man, the media sure ain't helping. The media, like, you wouldn't even know the race is happening watching if you just like consume these channels, right? I don't know, it's scary, but anyway. And again, it's not even them. It's just like the whole system that's built around them that kind of like coerces you to do this kind of thing. If they did videos about Zoran, they'd probably go to shit because like algorithmically, the algorithm wants Trump. It wants like attention on Trump, whether it's anti-Trump or pro-Trump. It's just going to promote any attention on Trump, right? But also like they've gained like their viewership that clicks on their videos are people who click on anti-Trump videos every day. So if all of a sudden you're not doing an anti-Trump video and you're doing videos about Zoran Mamdani, who no one's ever heard of, basically, people aren't going to click. So it's kind of like if you want to keep your platform, you're kind of trapped. It's almost like an audience capture kind of thing. It's like it's a little bit of audience capture. I think it's more algorithmic capture. So anyway, yeah, it's Ben. I knew his name was Ben. Something like that. Um, but anyway, this, however, is a real one, name of Hasan. And, you know, he's a himbo. Also, just one little thing, because I forgot to mention this. I should have mentioned this. Where's the YouTube channel? I'll just go to the YouTube channel. But anyway, if you want an oddly like big but like oddly like focused kind of a camp or a news source, um this is good. Democracy Now is really really good. Like I would say that like if you're gonna like do Brian Tyler Cohen, if you're gonna do like Meidas Touch, there'll be a lot of valuable stuff there. But I feel like looking at like this would be a good like supplement is just like looking at what's there. See, they're talking about the Gaza flotilla. Um, Quite a bit actually. They're talking about the Gaza flotilla. And I assume they've been talking about the mayoral race, but I don't know, but we can check that after. But anyway, they've done a lot of amazing work forever, and you can see they have Ilhan Omar. They're not always like this is what happened today, let's freak out about what happened today, baby. Like they're a little bit more about like they do, here are the headlines, here are the world headlines, here's what's going on, but they do like some longer form like medium term reporting, if that makes sense. Like they probably haven't talked about what's happening in like I don't know, like South Sudan, for example. They probably haven't talked about that in the news, but then like once a month, Democracy Now will have like a more longer form segment where they have a relevant expert. And I mean, they just have the best guests to talk about their things. You can see there's a different guest and like compare the thumbnails. Just by virtue of looking at the thumbnails, you can tell how much of a different channel Democracy Now is than all these other nominally progressive leaning channels, right? It's just Trump, 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 Trump. This one, I see 1 Trump, 2 Trump, 3 Trump, 4 Trump. Like this is like a reasonable amount to have Trump in your thumbnails, right? And you can see a lot of their videos don't do as well, right? But they're still like hitting 400K. They're hitting big 670K. They're hitting big numbers with some of this. But they're not hitting big numbers with other things, and that's okay. That's what you do. This is like what it looks like. So anyway, they do really good work. Partly thought of them because Hasan's a big fan of them, but and they're very like they're not as America focused either. They're more like global affairs focused, which is good because like especially in America, you need more people talking about like world affairs and not just America. So anyway, very good network, very solid coverage. You know, they're not perfect. No, nothing's perfect, but like this is like a good just like the comparison of thumbnails, of titles, of topics, of guests. It's like black and white. It's like day and night comparing what this channel looks like to what these channels look like, right? So, I would just like, you know, I would just say that it's a good thing to supplement. Like you watch your Meidas Touch and you come over here so you can actually hear about Greta Thunberg, or you can hear about Karen Howe talking about the empire of AI. This is what I mean. Like, this isn't like current news. This isn't like, oh, big event happened today, so let's all freak out about it and try to like get a bunch of viral views on it. This is like a longer form segment of Amy having a guest on who's an expert at something that's relevant, and she's going to talk about that thing, right? This is what they do on their channel. Like, there's nothing urgent in the news about AI, maybe, but it's still a very important topic to talk about, right? So I like that they do more of that kind of stuff. You know, I don't see Zoran's face anywhere here, which is, you know, disappointing me a bit, but I think that's more just the thumbnails. Like, I think, like if you go watch their top headlines, if you watch their news segment, I'm sure they'll they'll mention the mayoral race. They certainly don't seem to be shy about mentioning the Freedom Flotilla, so that's very cool. And again, they're more of like an internationally focused channel in general. So I'd say that they would probably skew to covering something like the Freedom Flotilla and go into Gaza a little bit more than American domestic politics maybe. But anyway, really good channel. There's not too many like it either, which is really why I pointed out. Is just like there's just not that many alternatives that are like this, and they've been doing real good work forever. They would have killed Amy, but she's already really old, so they don't have to. I think that's the thing, because it feels abnormal. It's like a channel this good shouldn't be allowed to exist. I like, what else is really good? While we're on the topic, while we're doing this, while we're talking about who's the coolest, majority support, the Silvers Rayleigh of political commentary, Michael Brooks being the Goldie Roger. But yeah, you can see they're talking about shit. They got paid. They got lots of smileys are on. Very good. Lots of smileys are on. And they don't like do huge views always, often, but some of their videos are doing pretty well. They're at least breaking 100K on a lot of them. And yeah, they have about 2 million viewers. So this is another good one. Another one that's been the Majority Report's been around like longer than Sam Seder. What's her name? Gina Garofalo or whatever. She used to be the host like back in the early 2000s. Both these shows have been around for forever. They're both New York based. And yeah, they do really, really good work. So that's like two, like, you need to read like the New York Times, or you need to watch the Meidas Touch. You need to like, get that central foundational zeitgeist. Like it gives you the basis for like understanding everything else and interpreting everything else that you see in the media about the news and all that. But then it's good to get that supplement of like, oh, this is an interesting topic, or like, this is an interesting issue that I haven't like heard other stations talking about. And again, you can see the difference. Like these guys are breaking 500,000 on every video, and the Majority Report has some videos at like 18,000 views. Whereas in a 21,000, 19,000 views, like some of their videos don't do that well. But it's because, and they know that, and they're not afraid to take that hit. They're more of a, a Patreon or subscription based thing or whatever it is. So anyway, different strategy, different niche, right? They're all progressives. Like I think Meidas Touch is like, I think personally they're progressive, but I think like the format they do is not like, is like more like liberal media. It's more like anti-Trump media. Whereas these ones do anti-Trump stuff, but they also like will take that algorithmic hit, will take that viewership, that tech algorithm promotional hit, by, talking about things that aren't, as popular. So we'll see. Anyway, they're good to watch, but let's keep going with this. I think Hasan's good to watch too. He's just like like this is like real reporting, real guests who have real information, like very informative, very like, in depth, and yeah, great.